Hey everyone, it's Kai from Cool Collectibles. Just staying at home with the family now due to this COVID-19 virus pandemic going around at the moment. But we're not really panicking just yet. So I was thinking about what I could talk to you guys about with the Transformers Masterpiece collection. And I realized that it's been about 4 years, almost 4 years since I did my last Transformers Masterpiece Moment video. That was back when Maz, I think his name was still in the game, and he was identifying all of his masterpiece moments for each of the figures that were coming out. And the last one I did was back in May 2016, and the collection's grown slowly over that time, maybe about 20 odd figures since then in the masterpiece series. So I've been adding figures and repaints and so on through the collection. So I thought I'd go through each of those ones that I've added since May 2016. Go through each one and tell you what I think are the masterpiece moments for me. So there's probably about 20 to 25 figures to go through, so hopefully you can stick around as I go through each one. So I'll be back in a bit. Alright, I thought I'd start off with the weird and wonderful repaints that I've got over the last few years. Starting off with MP31, I think it is, in Delta Magnus. Now I think this was probably one of the rare figures where I thought the repaint was actually even better than the original release. For those that probably don't know, I think this colorway was the original Japanese animation version that was planned for the 1986 movie, and for whatever reason I think Hasbro decided to change Ultra Magnus's colors to the more red, white and blue that we're used to now. But I think there was some trailer or something like that I heard where you can see this original colorway for the Delta Magnus color. And just I'm not sure if you can really see, just some of the silver paint application in the thighs, the head sculpt that you might be able to see there with the yellow eyes and the red helmet, really do bring it some presence on display. I haven't transformed him into bot mode for ages now, but I might do that and take a few photos, to be honest, while we're all sort of waiting around at home. But in the big scheme of things, with the Diaclone repaints and original colorways, I think this is right up there with some of the best of the ones that Takara have released. The one on the right that you see here is, I think it's MP40, the Target Master Hot Rod repaint. The chroming is really nice. I think I might have heard some reports of chrome damage on the original MP28, I think it was. But both of mine seem to be pretty lucky with no issues on the chrome. This one has a sort of more darker purplish colorway with the sort of white hip area here and the, I don't know if they're purple or pinkish shins and so on. Now, by all accounts, I didn't actually realize where this repaint came from, but it might be due to some season 3 animation colors where they've changed Hot Rod's or Rodimus Prime's colors up. So I'm not sure if that's accurate or not, but it was a good way for me to have the alternate car mode for this particular mold, and I think it does look pretty damn good. I think the bot mode is still a bit too squarish on the front with this chest, but in car mode I think it really reflects the way he looked in the at least the 1986 movie. I don't think this clear plastic at the top is all that great, but I think overall I guess the masterpiece moment is being able to have all those weird repaints from the cartoons. The other one I've got here is MP25L, I think, for Loud Pedal. And I think this black version, I don't know if this was an original Diaclone colorway, but trying to remember back to Maz's article on his original G1 search for this particular toy, and I can't remember if it's some sort of Danish rare variant or something like that, but there was a whole story behind how this became so rare and sought after in its original G1 form. So definitely glad that Takara released this. It would have been nice if the black here wasn't just black plastic, but a glossy or a metallic sort of black paint. But I do love the emblem at the front there, purple windscreen, and you can see that sort of repaint of Blaster in there. I don't think that's twin cast. I don't know what, I can't even remember what character that is for that version of Blaster, but it is a really nice rendition for this Corvette. Even in bot mode, they were able to give that classic, there's the head sculpt in there, where they were able to give him the, I think it's the green head from the original toy. So they did do a really great job with some of these Toy Fair exclusives for the Diaclone repaints. So I'm definitely sad that they haven't done those for a while. I might just get Delta Magnus out of the way here. The last group are these cassettes, which were MP15 and 16E, and I guess the masterpiece moment for me was definitely getting this version of, it's probably a heavily retooled Ravage, if you want to call that, but I thought it was a unique enough mold based on the Steeljaw character, and I thought this was the clue that they were going to release a masterpiece Blaster, which considering this came out probably 3 years or so ago, they haven't done anything further on Blaster, or that they've teased at least, which is a real shame. And I guess because I've got all the other cassettes in bot mode, I've got all of these cassettes in their alt mode. So I think this one's the Rat Bat repaint. I can't even remember their names. I think there's Enemy and Nightwing or something like that, but I can't even remember what this guy's name is, to be honest. And this one's the Ravage repaint with the tiger stripes, and this one is the Frenzy Rumble repaint with that nice gold chrome there. So they do look nice displayed next to their cassettes, and along with Sound Blaster as well. But that's pretty much it for my weird repaints, or Diaclone style, over the last few years. So I'll get on to some of the other groups of characters. Alright, so one of the molds which I think is universally loved by MP collectors these days is the Inferno mold, with MP33 Inferno on the left there. I think it's MP35 grapple and MP37 Art Fire with their, I think that's a Diaclone repaint. Now I guess the clear and obvious masterpiece moment for me and many others is, I think, how they managed to get this massive ladder that you see there in alt mode, and how they managed to engineer that and collapse that into the chest and the rear to give you such a fantastic and clean back of the figure. Now pretty much all the other third-party options still retain this ladder hanging down between his legs and so on. So the way the Takara engineers were able to engineer that and pretty much collapse it. I'm not sure if you can see it through the front there, you probably can't, but they did manage to collapse it all the way into that chest, which is fantastic. You can probably see the tip of the chest there for Inferno. But this was probably one of the first figures where they started introducing alternate head sculpts and ultimate chest plates and things like that to swap out for the real world sort of chrome look, or the white coloured plates and so on for a definite true cartoon accurate look. I've sort of gone for a bit of a mix of both. I do love the cartoon accuracy and the matte paint and so on, but I do love the splashes of realism and chrome and translucent plastic and things like that that sort of give it that extra touch of I guess presence on the display. But even though they're universally loved these days, I still remember when they first released, there were still plenty of complaints from collectors. I still remember people complaining that, oh, you can see these arms that look like robot arms in bot, that you get in this alt mode. There were complaints about, no rubber wheels and all the usual stuff that you get from collectors. But for me, I think this is a fantastic mold. This one here is a fantastic repaint that you get to see all the details. Thank God they didn't use stickers, and these are all tamped on decals, which is fantastic. And I guess with these two paired with the likes of Red Alert in the 14 plus that I'll go through next, and even with Wheeljack and so on, this is where I think they definitely need to announce a Trailblazer and a Hoist to go with grapple here, just to round out that season 2 cast, and really, bring home those groups of characters that really did interact closely together. But overall, these are a couple of fantastic figures. They do look a little bit wonky with their so-called thighs or knees and so on, but again, I think it's so true to the cartoon, and to bring out all of that engineering but still give us that sort of look. I think they've done a fantastic job with this particular mold. But on to the next group. Alright, so here are the 2 remaining coneheads. I think Ramjet came out first, so I think I covered him in the previous 2016 Masterpiece Moments video. And I was definitely glad that they went and released these 2 as well. I guess the MP11 mold is pretty dated now compared to some of the newer releases. Hopefully they do release a new mold with some engineering improvements. But I think for these 2, for all the coneheads, the biggest plus for me and the masterpiece moment is definitely the head sculpts. I love how they've integrated that conehead. People were complaining that it's a bit of a cheat, but I don't know how else they could have done it. I mean, the cartoon itself was a cheat, and just the facial expressions and so on that they've got with these ones really made a big difference to the sort of standard expression that the MP11 figures had. And they were able to at least retool them to have the wings and the back of the figures as close as they could to the cartoons. There is a bit of issue, I guess, with because of the cheat on the top here. The real jet cone that you can see picking up between his legs there was definitely unfortunate that they couldn't figure out a way to improve that. But overall, I think posed up, standing there, I love the way that they looked in the cartoon, the way they sounded, how they were just a bit more badass than the original 3 Seekers. So having Ramjet and these 3 together were a definite plus for me. Luckily, I was able to get them through some of the discounts that Big Bad Toy Store and a few of the other retailers had. So I think the original pricing on release was bordering on ridiculous. I think getting up there around 160, 170 US, which when you think about it for these particular figures and their engineering is pretty bad. But they've had a lot of big sales for these figures. Now I guess they have had some production issues as well. I think there was for Thrust here, I think the main issue was the wobbly waists, and you can see that mine's a little bit wobbly. I think there was a fix, but that took too much disassembly, so I didn't bother doing that. I think Dirge was probably the best out of them all. I think Ramjet might have had some shoulder issues or something like that, but my Dirge had no issues at all. So again, overall, I think these look great on display, but it'll be interesting to see if Takara end up announcing a new MP11 mold soon. But on to the next group. Alright, up next are the Carbot repaints, and we've got 6 repaints here over the last few years. But I have to say, in bot mode, along with their push for more cartoon sort of accuracy and paint application, these really do fit in really well with the newer releases like Optimus, Bumblebee and Hound. I have to say my favourite of the repaints is definitely Blue Streak here. I just love the head sculpt. People are complaining that, it's like, what's his name? I don't know if it's Jared Leto or whatever, that US talk show host. But I think it's a fantastic rendition. And I love how they've gone with the alternate head sculpts along with also Blue Streak. Unfortunately, they didn't add any alternate head sculpts for Prowl. But I think the repaint that they've done is pretty damn good. I love the sort of differences where they've got the grey front there, the blue windscreen and the windows. And people say the simpler paint app is a bit boring, but I think it really brings out some of the better aspects of the mold. And I think with Blue Streak here, you can sort of make out a few more of the details. I think with the original one, it's so dark and glossy and so on. It looks fantastic in the classic realistic car mode, but in bot mode, I think this paint just looks fantastic. Especially for Wheeljack here, I think they really did improve things with the more sort of sparse white repaint. You know, you can really make out the chest area more than the original that was hidden away from some of the dark green paint app. The feet, how they've integrated all the whiteness in the inside there, really sort of closes the gaps and makes the figure look so much better. I think with Sideswipe and Red Alert, those were the first two MP Plus releases, I think, from memory. So no real alternate head sculpts or anything like that, but I think what they've done with the repaints of the face, I think they've done a pretty good job. I guess with the retooling of the mold, they weren't able to make the arms and so on perfectly cartoon accurate for Red Alert there, but I think the way they've done the sort of matte, sort of off-white paint on the legs and the grey, it's just really, really good. And I think for Sideswipe here, it was great that they were able to use the white ball joints on the hips there instead of the black. Yeah, just hiding, I think, even the elbows there. So I think the key masterpiece moment for me here is just how they've been able to repaint them to be more cartoon accurate and integrate them better with the more recent releases. But I think that's pretty much all the repaints they're going to do, because they've run out of characters now, apart from maybe, let me have a look, MP25 Tracks. So that's probably the last figure that they can probably do a cartoon anime repaint on, which I guess that wouldn't surprise many people if they did do that. But I'm still hoping for an Ironhide and Ratchet Diaclone repaint for the car mode. But unfortunately, there's no further repaint on the horizon for those two. But that's pretty much it for the Carbot repaints. Now I'll get on to some of the bad guys and their repaints. Alright, for the bad guys, we've got MP36 Megatron on the left there, MP29 Plus Shockwave, and of course the MP36 Plus G1 toy repaint for Megatron. Now I think when this was released, I was so happy that they announced it, but of course it pretty much made MP10 Optimus look really dated, and I think that pretty much pushed them into making MP44 Optimus. And what a pair they do look like on display. They are the definitive, I think, versions of each character in this Masterpiece series. To be honest, I have not transformed this Megatron at all. The only one I have transformed, of course, is the 36 Plus here to get it into its gun mode, and I've only done that once. I think this one probably took an hour or so for me to get the MP36 Plus into gun mode, and I'm not gonna risk the paint chipping and all that sort of stuff on this particular figure. I love the head sculpts that they give, and the swap out ones I've gone with the shouting, snarling look. Love the red eyes. I was a bit disappointed with the use of the cartoon style insignia instead of the sort of more G1 toy insignias that you see down here. But I've gotten over that, and it does look nice with the other cartoon sort of repaints. And I guess from a cartoon perspective, I guess the debate is still open on MP29, I think it's 29, the 29 Plus Shockwave or the original release, which one is more cartoon accurate. I guess Takara hasn't really said either way. For the original one, the lilac sort of purple, you can see that sort of colorway in the cartoon, but for the most part I think he does have a darker shade, which this one represents much better. And I do love that the insignias are tamped on this time and not stickers, and I guess the sort of larger, I think it's a larger yellow eye, some of the joints are a little bit stiffer, and just the colorway really screams Shockwave more to me than the original figure. So I'm glad they at least improved it that way, and I have the original release on display in gun mode in the display cabinet. For the MP36 Plus, getting him into this gun mode was an absolute pain in the ass, but I finally got there without too much damage to the chrome, and I've just left it like that in the display cabinet. and the chrome does look very, very nice. I love the way they use that translucent sort of almost bronzish plastic as the homage to the G1 toy. It's even got that sort of pearlescence to it. So just the chroming, the way it looks like this with the swirls and so on is the definite masterpiece moment for me. Now I guess the masterpiece moments for these two, back on the original one, you know, that was the all-in-one transformation. I guess you did have to take the backpack off, but you didn't have to include that. It doesn't need that backpack clipped on, but I love how the front of the gun sort of folds out on that big armature piece that's made out of die cast that clips in the back there. So I think the way they were able to integrate that transformation was the masterpiece moment for me. And I think just this guy, pretty much everything screams masterpiece to me. Just the whole overall aesthetics. People were saying his legs are too long and all that sort of stuff, but you compare it to any of the third-party figures, it just blows them away completely. And from a cartoon perspective, it just fits in with all the recent characters. And I love that pearlescent sort of silver paint application. Some people like the matte finish on the carbots. I do like some of the matte finishing, but where they add that touch of gloss or touch of metallic finish, it really does bring out some of the colors and really, I wouldn't say up the quality, but just the premium feel and the premium look on the display. And this guy, I mean, these two together look fantastic. So I'm not sure if they're going to do a MP13 plus repaint. I wouldn't be surprised if they did, or they would jump straight to announcing a new mold. But if they were to upgrade the Soundwave colorway to fit in with these two, that would I would very much like that in the collection as well. So that's pretty much it for the Decepticon repaints that I've got. And I think up next are all the more recent molds that I've got in the collection. So I'll be back in a sec. Alright, so one of the first new molds that we got over the last few years was of course Sunstreaker here, MP39 I think it was. I'm not even sure what Cordon's number was, MP40, 42 maybe. I'm losing track of all the numbers now that they've sort of thrown in Beast Wars numbers and so on. But when this figure came out, there was no doubt in my mind that it was going to be an engineering marvel, and Takara did not disappoint. I think you know, there's still a lot of complaints on the fake chest, which still boggles the mind why people are against it, and that they think it's parts forming or a cheat or something. Well, the cartoon was a cheat, and the fact that they were able to, you know, put the insignia there, have that fold away, and the original, I can't even remember where the actual hood is. There it is up there, folded up in there. You know, I guess the unfortunate design was this sort of butt flap that you still see at the back there, but as a compromise for the way he looks in general from the front like this, I'm ready to forgive Takara for that sort of concession. I think articulation-wise, the way they've designed the feet, all the third-party figures, the legs look absolutely ridiculous, but the way they've designed it in such a slim look, it's just perfect. How it sort of flares out at the bottom, just like it did in the cartoon. The smaller chest really brings the body proportions into something that looks actually like a proper proportioned robot, because of the other third-party designs where they didn't have the cheat. You know, the massive hood of the car mode is retained, so it just looks way out of proportion. But for me, I think they've done a fantastic job. The backpack, as always, is a little large because they've had to fold all of that stuff away. But again, even that design, I think it ends up looking pretty clean, and it's sturdy. It doesn't sort of flop around like the old MP9 Hot Rod or Rodimus figure. So I think all in all, the paint application, the design, articulation, they really knocked this one out of the park. Even the head sculpt, I think, is pretty damn good. I think there are a few that don't particularly like the head sculpt or think the ears and so on should be a little bit bigger, but I guess, again, if that's a compromise to be able to fit it within the transformation, I'm happy to give them that concession, because it does look pretty damn fantastic. Luckily, it doesn't make Sideswipe look too dated, but if they were to redo the original Lambor mold and be able to collapse that chest a little bit better, it would look fantastic next to this. As for Diaclone repaints, this is probably one of my favourites, if not the favourite of the Diaclone repaints. Love the chrome at the back there. I'm not sure if that's dust. Actually, that's just dust. I thought the chrome was starting to wear away for a bit there, or have some sort of finish on it. But I just wipe my finger and it's just a bit of dust that's getting into the detolf. So I'll try and fix it up and clean that up. But just everything about this piece, from the decals, the way they integrated the lights there, the logo, everything is so beautiful. And it's just such a clean design in car mode that I was definitely glad that they announced this. They did have the original, I can't remember the name, Clampdown I think it was, for MP12, or actually it was the MP14 repaint that is very similar to this, but this of course being the Sunstreaker mold really takes it to another level. So I think all of those points for these things really are the masterpiece moments for me, and I think this figure was probably one of the first to really take them down that path of more articulation, more cartoon accuracy, and just that sort of overall cartoon aesthetic. So I think up next I'll finish off with the three most recent figures in their unique molds with Optimus, Bumblebee and Hound. Alright, so here are the three most recent G1 releases in the MP series, which is pretty fitting, and I think they really are an indication of where Takara want to take this series. I wouldn't call it a full reboot, and I guess some people might even call it that they are a full reboot, but I think when I collect these MP series figures, I'm not looking for value for money, to be honest. It's how much nostalgia they bring, how much engineering that they can bring to the characters and the transformations, and I think these three designs bring those aspects in spades. They are controversial, I think, because of that. I think for Optimus, there were a lot of complaints about the size of the backpack that you see there, but through all the measurements that I've done and all the comparisons, I don't think it's a big deal for me. And if they did that to include the Peter Cullen voice box and so on, so be it. I think with the overall design, the head sculpt, the paint application, the articulation, I don't think they've done a better Optimus figure ever. It blows away MP10 in every aspect for me, in terms of cartoon accuracy, transformation, even the way it looks in truck mode with the full red cab. So the way they've done the transformation, people seem to hate the folding, collapsing technique that they did for the legs and how it sort of explodes the cab. But I think that's where the innovation and the ingenuity comes in with the Takara engineers, and it's not just the simple Optimus transformation that we've had for the last 10 years or so. I think they tried to do something different. They tried to design in all the articulation and all the sort of gimmicks that you see out of the cartoon. Sure, that upped the price, but I think for what you get in the package with the trailer, all the accessories, the price justifies what you get in the box, regardless of whether or not you want what's in the box. So I think for that, it's a fantastic release for me. Bumblebee here is probably a bit of more of a mixed bag for me. I think the transformation is fantastic. I think the overall look is fantastic. It definitely looks way more cartoon accurate than the original MP21 release. It has the same sort of cheat with Sunstreaker that I just showed, with this fake robot chest and the car chest. is all folded up in there somehow with bits on the sides here, and I guess that's where the design has been the most controversial with the feet. And yes, it is pretty damn ugly at the back there for the feet. I think the backpack is fine. I'm not sure why so many people complain about the backpack. You fold it away and you clip it in place properly. It's sturdy. It doesn't move around too much any more than the others. And I think it looks fine collapsed the way it does. So I think the only negative for me are the feet. If they had designed a way to get this bloody window panel out the way somehow, would have been perfect. But mine doesn't have any sort of loose hips or loose joints. The head sculpt is great. The paint application overall is great. And the G1 aesthetics, straight out of the cartoon, you can't doubt that at all in my eyes. For MP Hound, I did write a quick article the other day about this particular release, how it's a fantastically engineered and designed figure, let down by some pretty shitty quality plastic. I've been pretty lucky, where the only tiny crack I've got on mine is on this armature piece at the back, which hasn't gotten any worse, and I can barely see it now. Just on that center piece, you can barely see a crack forming there, but I won't move that piece pretty much ever. I think all the other joints are good. No cracking on the back of the knees and panels and on the legs and so on. I was pretty careful in the transformation. It took me almost 2 or 3 hours because I was folding every panel slowly, carefully, following MGo's transformation sequence. His is probably the most suitable for slow transformation, and I followed that to the letter and didn't have any problems at all. And the overall style and look of this figure is fantastic. You can't complain about too much kibble at the back because they've done a fantastic job on the rear there, and the way they've folded away the feet was some engineering genius there in my eyes. And it just looks so much more cartoon accurate with that sort of G1 aesthetic and the body proportions that the third-party figures, including Fans Toys Willis, I mean, that was a great figure for its time, but I don't think in terms of overall aesthetics it can even compare to this Hound. And that's where these figures really bring out the masterpiece moment for me. It's when I look at them on display, they just scream G1 cartoon to me. I'm more of a fan of the G1 cartoon as opposed to the original G1 toys. I mean, I love the toys, and I had, you know, over 100 of them growing up, but it was the cartoon that I watched over and over in every Saturday and after school and so on. And it's these interpretations and this sort of style that I grew up loving and what I remember. So the fact that they've been able to bring that to life for me to display in my collection, I'll forever be grateful. And if they continue to make new versions of these, which I'm sure they'll do in another 5 to 10 years time, I'll judge then if it's worth the investment to buy another version of these. But compared to their original ones over MP10 and MP21, I think Optimus and Bumblebee here are, no doubt in my mind, are better figures. And Hound here, I think I'm glad that I waited for the official Takara release. So that's pretty much it for all the figures that I've gotten over the last 3 to 4 years in the Masterpiece collection. It's been pretty slow these days because they're doing the Beast Wars releases, they're doing various repaints and so on. So I think the only announcement they've had for G1 is there is a black Nemesis Prime repaint for Optimus here, but then they've got they teased RC at some recent con, and I think that was the only G1 tease. So I'm not sure what's happened to all the rumours about Trailbreaker and Hoist, Blaster, etc. Hopefully we hear more over the next few months and this virus doesn't screw up everyone's schedules. But hopefully you like that sort of rundown of my collection over the last few years. Hopefully you can click subscribe and give the video a like too. I do hope to have more Masterpiece Transformers coming up for review soon. And I do have a whole bunch of other figures from 1/6 scale and so on as well. So hopefully you can subscribe and stay tuned for all of that. Until then, thanks again, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Cheers.